Hello everyone and welcome back to Cities Skylines 2, where today we are starting a brand new city. And we'll be starting on a pretty known map. It's gonna be the good old Archipelago Turbo. Archipelago Turbo is, besides being terribly named, based on Archipelago Haven.
Archipelago.
Wow, let's just select the map. The name, that's gonna be up to you guys. Name and the story, of course. We're not gonna unlock everything. And here it is in all its glory. So I'm just gonna quickly go through all the changes I made and why I made them, as well as just quickly how to set up or enter the map editor. But a little word of caution. A forum post on the Paradox forums just went online where they state that since the map editor is still a work in progress and changes are still being made, any maps we create currently might not function all that well with new updates. Now, to open the map editor, if you enable developer mode, you can just hit tab to get up the main menu, go to the UI bindings tab, and then scroll way down to a menu called menu, and you can click start editor to get going. To actually load one of the vanilla maps into the editor and start configuring an existing map, I'm going to throw a link in the description to a guide to doing that from another YouTuber called Chubby Panda. So the very first thing I wanted to change was to get rid of the massive highway that cuts through their main island and the highway bridges as well, because I don't really think they look all that great. They are too chunky, too big, and I kind of want to grow this city and region in an organic fashion, so I would rather start with a smaller scale version of the infrastructure, and then we'll have the headache of upgrading it along the way, which might also require some tough decisions. I think that's going to be a little more realistic. So the first step was basically to remove a good chunk of the dual highway stretches and instead replacing it by the 4-lane national road. Replace the bridge crossing this strait to another island as well. And of course I replaced the main bridge, the main highway bridge. In this case I went for an avenue 4-lane bridge because it creates an actual bridge structure and makes it all look a little better. The biggest change to the map is probably the terraforming I've done. I got into some pretty heavy duty terraforming to kind of split up the main island here into some smaller islands, which I feel it looks a little more interesting, and I actually think it kind of fits the rest of the map as well, which is relatively untouched because I just felt this island was a little too big. It's a bit more interesting now, and it's of course going to be a little more challenging to kind of develop on as well, which I'm looking forward to. I also made two of the islands, this one and this smaller one here, kind of inaccessible by having a lot of elevation here. There's like a, don't know if this is a mountain, it's probably just a hill, but this thing over here looks a little more like a mountain. So I really think it adds a bit of extra natural beauty to the map. Now, another big change, which you probably noticed by now, is the amount of forest we've got. Fully grown juicy trees all over the map, and my logic here was that I'd rather plant too much forest than too little, because for one, we can always remove it, and the other reason is that you will retire in southern Florida before you get to see a tree actually grow to its full size in game, so we might as well just pack the map with trees up front. Additionally, I actually changed the climate of the map to the San Francisco one just to try something, so it's gonna be interesting to see how it actually affects the weather here. I also greatly increased the amount of fertile land. I don't know why there's so little of it on most maps, as it doesn't really make much sense. I feel that most of these grassy plains should be pretty fertile, so I pretty much just changed all these pretty flat grassy plains throughout the map to fertile land, but I also increased the amount of ore-rich land throughout the region here. So anywhere where we've got some mountainsides and some rocky steep cliffs, I added in some ore on the ground so that we can do some pretty extensive mining if that's what we want. One of the last major changes I did was to add a railway to actually access the starting tile of the map. I ran it alongside the highway here, where it branches off from the original network The original network terminates at 2 places on this major island, which is quite a bit of distance away from the starting tile. So on this map you're kind of forced to spend some points buying tiles and then trying to connect up if you actually want rail infrastructure on your start island here. And I'm pretty sure we want that, as it's, you know, an integral part of most cities and their development. So I made sure to add that. And finally, I added in a few more ship routes, and we've now got ships at some pretty cool places alongside the map. I only added some extra routes where the straits between islands was actually wide enough to support it, but I think it's a pretty cool effect. Is there anything better than a fresh city start? I don't think so. The plan is to have multiple towns, some of them with a history bound to different types of industry. And I'm thinking the starting town we'll build here is going to be a fishing town, or at least that's the origin of it. So my plan is to develop a fishing port here. And of course, I know the irony is not lost on me that fishing isn't actually supported or simulated in Cities Skylines 2 as opposed to the predecessor, so we're gonna have to wait for a juicy DLC to actually cover that functionality. But we can make a port where the industrial buildings is very much going to look like it could be fish processing. For the street layout, there's a couple of things I want to do. I want to establish a small commercial center here alongside the national road. And then I'll have the actual downtown be close to the port. But seeing as we can't really develop the port right now because we can't unlock the tile, I'm gonna start developing this small, rather suburban center. And then as soon as we unlock the first milestone, what's it called? Tiny Village, we're gonna unlock 3 expansion permits, and we're gonna use those to purchase this area and then start developing the port. So I want to get there pretty fast because the port is gonna really be the main industrial center of the entire island. Alright, so let's start with our initial road layout. I am going to grab the 4-lane road and just upgrade a few of these segments here. Probably going to just upgrade 3 segments of the national road so that it's actually zonable and has a lower speed limit because you're driving through town. And then I'm going to use the regular 2-lane road to just create some connector roads that branch out from our main avenue here cutting through. So I'm just gonna go a bit further, and then we're gonna use the alleys primarily to kind of fill in our grid. So I think we're gonna pick the alley tool now, and then instead of just going for the full zonable grid, the largest block we can establish, we're gonna cut it a bit short and go for something like this instead. And I might use even smaller blocks when we develop downtown near the port to really show the old city center. Because we are gonna have some not huge but bigger commercial establishments alongside this avenue. I think that makes sense. We don't have true big box stores in Cities Skylines 2. But we can use some bigger lot sizes here, and then we can make things small down here. So that's the plan. Alright, so we've got a pretty basic road layout with a mix of some small 1-lane roads, some regular 2-lane roads, and a lot of these smaller alleys without street side parking that I really feel fits the theme for what we're trying to achieve here. I think we're gonna have to zone this up and get a little town center going here before we actually move down to making the road layout for the port. We might as well do that when we start unlocking these tiles and can actually establish the port. Of course, this is gonna require us to establish some services, getting some electricity and some sewage in place. And I think we're gonna start out with the transformer station. Ideally, I'm going to establish a coal power plant pretty soon so we can start exporting, and because I want to use the asset as it looks pretty sweet. But for now, I think we'll make do with using the transformer station, and I'm gonna create like a tiny industrial area. Let's see if we can make a little roundabout here, and then we're gonna place the transformer station somewhere around here. Just gonna go for this. This leaves a bit of zoning we can use to actually add a bit of industry as well, which is gonna be important. And I'm just gonna create another. Let's see. We'll just create another back road that leads out to this small peninsula. And it's pretty much just for detailing purposes, just to add a bit extra. And we'll actually connect this up here for a dirt road as well. Very nice. For the water situation, I want to use the water tower once again just to use the asset. It's not the most effective solution, but it's quite a looker. So I think I'm gonna add it to like an awkward area. But just this, we're gonna add an easy connection, of course, to our network. And then for this is a sewage outlet, but you guys know I call it a poop dispenser. We're gonna have to be careful where we actually place this, and ideally I'm gonna have to delete this as soon as I can. So I think I'm gonna unlock the wastewater treatment plant relatively soon. And the reason is that there's not a lot of currents in the waters on this map. It's like very stale, which means that your poop will just kind of slowly expand to a big area, and then when you actually delete your sewage outlet or poop dispenser, sorry for that, it's gonna take a while for the poop to actually disappear. So it's gonna leave a lot of pollution. So let's just keep this in mind, and if I forget it, please remind me to actually remove the poop dispenser, because otherwise we're gonna have a sticky situation down the line. And it's finally time to start zoning, of course. So I'm going to zone my commercial at first alongside Cooper Street. Yeah, let's just call it that. And I want to keep the zones relatively small, such as this being like the largest size. And then I'm going to mix between European and American, just to ensure that I get a pretty healthy variety of different assets to spawn here, which is also why I'm going to try and keep the actual size of the zones or the lots that I zone as unique as possible as well. And it's just to ensure as much diversity in the types of development we'll be seeing. That's the main reason for doing this. We may go for something like this here. And maybe this is actually fine. Might have like just another small commercial establishment down here at this end of Cooper Street. But otherwise, this is probably a good start. Maybe we'll have an additional one here, so that this is the center. There's a bit here and then just a tiny bit out here. We might even go for something like this. Great. For my low density zoning, I want to make sure that the houses that spawn are relatively small as well. So I'm going to try and just enforce that by not zoning too deep. So for instance, going for something like this is hopefully going to ensure that we see some We're gonna enforce that the lots are actually only 4 tiles deep, and I don't want to actually zone the corner, because then I can enforce like the angle of the assets we'll be seeing, hopefully, at least in theory. I'm really adding the disclaimers here, huh? Sorry about that, but yeah, things don't always work according to plan, so I'm just trying to keep that in mind. Basically, we'll zone just a bit of industry to create this tiny industrial area that we talked about out here, and I'm hopeful that the zoning sizes that I'm designating here are so small that we won't have too many smokestacks. I don't want that massive polluting industry out here. I think just some like light manufacturing and some warehouse buildings would be really cool to have next to our transformer station. So I'm hopeful that's what we'll be seeing. And we're gonna see how it actually works with this type of low density zoning. The obvious issue, of course, that we'll be facing is that there's not a ton of asset difference in Cities Skylines 2. So it's gonna be interesting to see just how much duplication of assets we'll be seeing. This is also why I will be mixing between the North American and the European style architecture here. Otherwise, we're just gonna see too much duplication. And I'm actually hopeful that with this start we can just hit play, and then I can just continue zoning while the first residents and businesses move in. And there we go, we've just reached milestone 1, Tiny Village, which most importantly gives us 3 more tiles to buy. Let's check what else we've unlocked. Map tiles, city budget, statistics, row housing, which is really cool, and then a bunch of new roads, healthcare, garbage management, lots of good stuff. So that's very, very nice, because I am going to implement row houses up here. But we're now open to actually buy some tiles and start developing the big fishing port. But before we do that, let's just take a little tour of this little area we've built so far. I've tried to already incorporate like a few small parks, and I think we've got a bit of park over here as well, just because I wanna keep the foresty look as much as possible. I know that doesn't really harmonize all that well with trying to utilize the land to its maximum efficiency, but I mean, if you're a sucker for nature, then leaving some forest and recreational areas is also maximum efficiency. Or maybe I'm just a hippie, I don't know. I really just like to have some trees kind of poke through the urban fabric and the city. Pretty happy with how our small commercial area turned out here. As you'll notice, we don't really have any of these massive grocery stores taking up a lot of space or having a ton of surface parking, which I really do like. Anyways, let's get to the centerpiece, which is of course gonna be the port. So we're gonna just start by unlocking these 2 tiles, then we can keep one in reserve, that's always nice. And for the fishing port, I'm thinking we're gonna utilize much of this outlet here, which is, it just looks like an ideal place to build a port if you're settling here to establish a town. And I want to have a design where the port is relatively square until we actually get onto this peninsula where we'll have a pier that kind of sticks out at an odd angle here. So the way I like to build my ports and establish my quay walls in this game is by actually working with everything as if it was on land, because working with the water physics is just so painful in this game. I'm not interested, as my best way of putting it. So we're actually gonna expand the landmass quite substantially here, about as much as we can, because this should just make it much easier for us to work with all this. So something like this is probably a good spot. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the outline of the entire port at first. So we talked about having this pier at an angle, which I think is gonna be very, very cool. So we might create that first. And the reason I'm using this 4-lane road is that I feel that when I start doing the terraforming to actually turn this road into a quay wall, this wide one, this 4-lane one, is a little easier to work with than some of the others. So for this road, we're just gonna bring it all the way into the hill here, because we're not gonna touch that. And then we're gonna bring this one up, and then we're gonna start creating the actual port. And it's gonna be at a bit of an angle here. We'll go for 126 maybe. And then we'll go straight. Something like this. And then we'll go about 110 and 105-ish. And then we'll just go north, just create a bit of an edge here. And I want to keep this peninsula intact as well as the other one. And hopefully this is gonna look pretty natural. All right, next step is of course gonna grab my level terrain tool, and then I need to find the appropriate depth that we want. I can't say that word, so that's the only time I said it in this entire episode, sorry. And I think I'm just gonna right click like halfway down here. I think that should be sufficient. And then what I like to do is I like to try and align it with the double yellow lines we have in the center of this avenue here. And then I'm just going to drag. And hopefully the water is removed, so I don't get any trouble with the water physics. Otherwise this is gonna be one big fail. Hopefully I can just save and reload the save then for it to work. But it actually seems like the water is disappearing, and that's exactly what I want. I'm wondering if it's a little too deep though. It shouldn't be, because it is quite deep here actually, so this should be fine. And I don't want to make it too shallow either, because then you can actually see from when you zoom out that the water level is much lower here, and that's not what I want either. I want it to be clear that this was the perfect spot for the original people that settled here to actually build a port. Alright, so I've been cheeky and I've made another little pier stick out here just to make it a bit more of a unique shape. And now comes the moment of truth, whether I'll be a laughing stock of this of the commentary field, or if everything's just gonna work out. We'll start with an easy end segment, delete it, and then hopefully... the relief. That one worked. So far so good. We'll grab the next one, and it's perfect. Yes. This is nice. I am starting to have a pretty good success rate with this technique. So yeah, if you're having trouble creating these keys, I really recommend just expand your shoreline massively and do it like this, because essentially the game has had an update some while ago, which means that it's much quicker to actually acknowledge that this is now land and there's no water here anymore. And that just makes it so much easier to actually work with this, because yeah, before this it was so tricky to work with. And now the fun part is just upgrading these. I prefer the alley because it's the least intrusive key wall for a port. Now I know there's a different technique you can use where you actually place a road underneath the water and then use the retaining wall as the key wall instead. And I fully agree that it looks very nice, but I just find it a little finicky to actually work with. And I think this is easier to actually build, because there's also an issue where the retaining wall can't be this tall, so you'll have to actually make the seabed much higher to achieve the look you want. And yeah, it's a little finicky, so I just prefer using this method, and I'm quite all right with how these key walls actually look. I think they look great. And let's see, I want to make this one very slender, something like this. And we'll just align, and we will just align over here as well, and there you have it. We are now ready to do some more terraforming, just to make sure that all of this is aligned and looks nice. Alright, it's starting to look pretty juicy around here. Now, if you're building along or you want to implement this technique when building your own port, then this next step is super important. Before you actually let the water in, make sure to complete some roads that stretch out from your keys. So if I want to create a road network that kind of, hooks up to my keys, I'm going to do it before I actually let the water in, because otherwise you're going to have a ton of issues with the simulation. And yeah, I always remember this because I'm so skilled. It's not like I'm actually re-recording this because I completely forgot my own advice, which I've given before in another video, by the way. I'm an idiot. And let's make sure we branch off this main road at a couple of spots. You see, it's giving me a ton of trouble simply due to the elevation. Please behave. Oops. Fortunately, the key is already in place, so it's super simple for us to just, dig it out again after we've lined these roads. It's not really an issue. And I think this is probably fine. Yeah. We can now let the water in. So we've got ourselves a port, and it turned out a little bigger than I had sort of planned for, which is odd because I built it. But I think we're gonna maybe bring the downtown of the town all the way down here to the waterfront. So that we effectively have two smaller port areas, one here and this, is this north? I don't even know what direction this is, but we'll have two port areas supporting the local fishing industry at least, and then hopefully in due time when we unlock rail infrastructure, we can bring in some rail as well for some heavy duty industry, which is gonna be really cool. What's left to do now is, of course, connecting up this piece of infrastructure with the existing little town we've built up here. And I think, branching off from Garnet Street is probably our best bet. It is like the main street of the city. Before I do that, I'm gonna have to do a little terraforming because as you guys can probably see, the terrain here is super rough. We'll grab our slope terrain tool, and I'm gonna increase this. Oh yeah, whoa! Gonna increase the size a bit, and then I'm gonna right click up here, and then I'm just gonna drag the terrain till about the point where I right clicked, and this should smoothen out the terrain as much as possible and make it a little easier for us to bring up the road network and connect to the existing town without having too much trouble. We'll grab our soften terrain tool and just soften everything up a bit. Soft, 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 soft. Something like this. And then we should be just about ready to actually connect it all up. Let us grab the 4-lane road and branch off from Garnet Street. And we'll see what actually makes sense here. And how far we should go, because I think we'll just start here. And why didn't that align? The zoning in this game is a struggle. And yeah, apparently this is much better. Alright, and I think if we were to intersect with Broad Street, we would probably have too tight of an angle here. So I think what we're gonna do instead is we're just gonna drag out another street here. We'll just do something like this, and then we'll connect this up at this crossing here as such. And I think I'm going to downgrade this to a 2-lane road, kind of keep with the spirits of the scale we're trying to achieve here, which is of course not too big. And we might even downgrade this to an alley, just to kind of reflect that I don't want two 2-lane roads right next to each other. Let's see how this looks. It's gonna be quite a bit of traffic here, which could prove to be an issue in the future, but not necessarily unrealistic. I'm gonna connect up some of the other roads as well, and I probably don't want all of these to be like 2-lane roads. That's probably a bit much. So I'll just upgrade this to an alley and start creating the road layout. We've got ourselves a basic street layout here that is good enough to continue working with. I think before we start zoning, I'm gonna cover our service needs first. So the first one is gonna be the medical clinic, which I have to find a suitable space for. And it seems we've got a bit of a good spot here, which is a pretty good fit. I think I'm just gonna add the extension wing right out the gate because it looks cool, and of course it provides extra capacity, which isn't too bad, and money is generally not a problem in this game, so I'm pretty confident that just by progressing through the milestones we'll have a pretty good inflow of cash. The next one we're gonna place is, let's see, we of course need some death care, but the cemetery is just too big for this island. So I think what we're gonna go ahead and do instead is buy the crematorium, because it's also a very nice looking building. So let's just go ahead and grab it. And I would like to create like a park around the crematorium due to just, you know, how it looks. It is a pretty nice looking asset. So maybe we can create a park area down here. Let's see if we center it as such, and then we are gonna add the hearse garage because it's an extension as well. And then if we just add some basic paths, that should create just a bit of symmetry for us. So let's see, we'll create a path here. We'll have one. Let's see, we'll go to about here, and we'll do the very same over here. And then if we can just join in here as close as possible, and we'll do the same over here. Cool. And we'll just connect up to this road here, and let's see. It's very basic, but I think it does the job. Oh, look at this alignment. Very sorry to those of you with OCD out there. I know this isn't great. Let's just see if we can make this even better. I may have to actually disable snapping, just to ensure that the alignment is perfect, and that seems to be much better. I'm just gonna enable snapping again and draw across to see if this is aligned, and it seems like it's pretty well aligned. So we've got ourselves a little park around the crematorium as well. And yeah, I really like this asset because it really looks like an old historical building, which is sorely missing from the game. And the medical clinic is in a pretty good spot as well. We are so close to progressing to the next milestone, so I'm just gonna wait for that, because that should allow us to place the school, which we also want to place down very early on. And there we have it, the small village milestone, giving us 4 extra tiles to unlock, 2 development points, a bunch of cash. Let's see, taxation, medium density, this will certainly come in handy, and the schools. Very nice. Let's start by just getting down the school. Need to find a good spot for it. Maybe somewhere around here. Yeah. And we'll just see if we can smoothen out the terrain a bit, and then we'll just place down a few basic paths. We'll see how these paths actually look, because we are very close to the terrain edge here, so it might look a little weird. But we'll just give it a go. You know what? Yeah. This is fine. Maybe we'll just do a little alignment like this instead. Looks a bit better. Maybe now we can, yeah, that's yeah, the other one was quite the challenge though, I must say. Now we've got a couple of development points as well, and I'm kind of proud because I actually remember what I wanted to buy, the water treatment plant, because yeah, like we talked about, we're gonna have a kind of sticky poop situation if we keep just dumping our poop out into the water here, since the currents are so slow. So we're gonna place the treatment plant instead, but I think we're gonna make like a dedicated space for it, maybe over here where we've already got the sewage outlet, just to have some more interesting focal points around the map. So I'm just gonna, let's see, we might even just make a bit of a key, actually, a bit of a key wall for this plant. So we'll just grab the alley. Just make like just a small section here. I don't actually know how big this treatment facility is. It's not too big. Okay, so we'll just go for something like this, and then we'll frame it in as such. Probably need a bit more clearance here. Yeah. Reduce the size of this one. We'll grab the coastline here and then just do a bit of oh, wait. I'm doing this all wrong. I need to upgrade this to a bigger road. Otherwise, I'm probably gonna have some issues trying to draw this. So we'll do it like this instead. And then let's try again. Then we can use the yellow line as sort of a guidance line for terraforming. And the water's gone. Let's see if this is gonna work. Please. Ah. Yeah, we are gonna try that again. I should have used the 4-lane road because it is just less finicky. I'm assuming this is gonna work. Nope. We need to do more terraforming. This is a bit awkward. I should follow my own rules or my own techniques or whatever you call it. There you go. That's much better. Let's see if we can just kind of catch this issue before it arises. All right, let's see if we can create a segment here as well. 0.3, I can live with that. And over here, it's the very same thing. All right, so that's quite good. And we should be able to upgrade now to make it nice and snug. And of course, do a little terraforming now to get the walls out. And probably let in some water as well. All right, we can now delete our poop dispenser. And of course, the underlying connection here, which we'll have to connect up to this road instead. Actually, we'll just remove all of this and run dual pipes because that's what we need to do. Let's see. We'll need to connect the water treatment plant to the city, so I'm thinking we'll just carry the pipes under the road. Let's just see how well we can do some terraforming here so it doesn't look all that out of place. Very nice. We'll just wrap around our facility at first. And then we'll bring up the road. Let's enable some, what's it called, contour lines, so that we can see what we're actually doing here. Should maybe just go for a should we go for a regular road? Nah, there's no need. Also, it started bugging out, so I'm gonna save myself the embarrassment. Just roll the road out with the alleyways. And we'll connect it up here. But I also think this is a good chance of just expanding the road layout from the city to also connect down here as well. Get a few more suburban streets in place. And I'm just gonna go for the quick and easy cul-de-sac solution here. And I am actually just gonna upgrade this to a 2-lane road, but I don't want any zoning alongside this road. So as soon as I unlock road services, we're gonna add planters to either side and a bunch of trees. So I've decided to upgrade a few of the alleys here to streets because I want them to be tree-lined eventually. But other than that, I've made no changes and we're about to get zoning, which is gonna be pretty exciting. The demand is probably gonna run out pretty quickly. So the first thing I'm just gonna do is I'm just gonna like roughly zone a bunch of industry out here on the port. Not gonna try and detail anything yet. Just want to get some, some industry in place so that we can get that job base growing, which is gonna fuel more residential demand, which is gonna fuel more commercial demand, and late stage capitalism basically. Let's zone alongside Florence Street. I want to get like the downtown, so to say, of the town in place first. I don't know why this is called Florence Street now. Anyways, I'm gonna get some medium density in place, and what I'm gonna attempt to do here is not reuse the same zoning size more than once if possible. That's probably not gonna be possible, but then, you know, more than a couple of times. So we'll have a 4x4, 3x3, 2x4. We can have a 2x3. We can have a, let's see, we can have a 3x2. And then we're probably gonna have to break up this block, which is fine. That was kind of what we wanted. If you guys remember, we wanted some smaller blocks to kind of show this this very, very old inner city vibe. Gonna break this up a bit more. Let's see. We can probably not sustain much more medium density than this, like at this point in time, but we can try to just add a bit more in. So this is a little too symmetrical, I feel. So maybe just something like this. And then we're gonna mix in a bit of our commercial in between. And I kind of want to go for like the same feel here. I don't want the blocks to be too big. I'm gonna try to like just carefully mix it in. And we're gonna switch to the European as we've done before. Switch back and forth just to kind of really get as much diversity as we can in here. And we'll go for some row housing as well. Just add that into the mix, trying to create like a dense look here. And we'll just add a bit of commercial here. Maybe this entire lot actually. And then my plan is that in the, like everything that's not directly facing Florence Street, but is inner city area, will have primarily row housing to utilize the space correctly. And then as we move further away from the inner city, we're gonna drop that, we're gonna lower the density so that we get to some more single family housing. So yeah, the plan is to let the simulation run for a bit now while we zone up the remainder of the town. Alright, so we've grown a little town substantially, and we've actually unlocked the large village milestone as well, which gave us a bunch of nice things, most of which we'll be implementing in the next episode, because I'm about to wrap this one up. But one thing I know that I do want to unlock is the advanced road services. And then I think I'm gonna upgrade Myrtle Lane to an actual street, or a 2-lane road rather. And we'll just bring it all the way down to the docks, and we'll just bring it up to around here. And then I want to implement for Aspen Street, we're going for planters on either side, so no parking, but lots of trees. Let's just get that implemented quick, because we're gonna have to wait a little while for the trees to grow, of course. And then for some of the remaining streets, such as Bedford Street, we're going for planters on one side only. Same with Rosewood Street. Going for trees on one side so that we still have some street parking available. And I think for Heather Street we are gonna do the same. At least as long as I haven't zoned in this direction yet. Just gonna add in the trees, and we'll just bring that all the way down here, I think. And then we're also gonna use our road tools to clean up a couple of junctions here. So we've got a traffic light between Florence Street and Dean Lane, which I think is probably a bit too dramatic and unnecessary. We've got lots of crosswalks up here as well that don't make all that much sense. So generally just cleaning up a bit, removing some of these crosswalks between these small alleys. I think that looks a little better. And yeah, the crosswalk for this dirt path is also a little odd. Just a little spring cleaning. Or it's August, so I don't know, summer cleaning. Crest Street is one way only, which I don't think makes all that much sense, so probably just gonna upgrade it as such. And we've of course got much more zoning we could do and more expansion, but this is turning into a long one, and I'm pretty happy with the start we've got going so far. Alright, now for the final, but perhaps most important part of this first episode. And that's gonna be the story and the name of not just this town, but the entire region. Because I only know like a few pieces of the overall puzzle. So I know that originally this town right here in the center of the map was settled because these waters are so rich in fish and wildlife. The same with the island in general. So it was just an obvious place to establish the first settlement and to build a thriving community around fishing. And today fishing is still fishing and fish processing and storage is still one of the major exports of the town. But that's just what I know. I don't know what the town is called. I don't know what this region is called. And I guess more importantly, I don't know where this region is actually placed. I am assuming it's somewhere in North America, but I don't know where on which coast or which general area. And that's where I hope you guys can assist me, because if you've got a suggestion for a name of this town, a name of the region, and like some backstory to it, let me know in the comments, and I'll be picking, or we'll having a vote, whatever fits best in the coming weeks when we have some good suggestions. And I will say it would be awesome if you guys can try and squeeze in some heavy European influences in the backstory, maybe even so much so that we can actually utilize a little more European zoning types, and having that actually fit into the history of this area. That would be very cool, because we are quite limited in asset diversity until we actually get some of these region packs or custom assets. So in the meanwhile, if we can establish a narrative and a story for this whole place that is going to allow us to realistically utilize a little more European zoning, I think that would really take us far. So that's the big task on you guys' plate right now, and I know you won't disappoint, because you never do, so I'm really looking forward to all the nice suggestions. And with that final question thrown out there into outer space, the wide internet. I want to wrap this up and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all the support. I hope you're excited about the series and you enjoyed this cozy, calm first episode where I did a lot of talking. And I, of course, hope to see you all in the next one. Bye.